What if you could peer into the mind of a criminal before they're even caught? That's the promise of criminal profiling, a powerful investigative tool that blends psychology, behavioral science, and detective work to predict who's behind some of history's most notorious crimes. Today, we're diving into 3 gripping cases where criminal profiles were so spot on, they helped law enforcement zero in on the perpetrators with astonishing accuracy. Let's explore how profilers got it right and what their predictions revealed about the criminals they helped catch. Case 1. The Mad Bomber of New York. Our first case takes us to New York City in the 1950s, where a mysterious figure known as the Mad Bomber terrorized the city for over 16 years. Between 1940 and 1956, this elusive perpetrator planted more than 30 homemade bombs in public places, movie theaters, train stations, and even Radio City Music Hall. The bombs caused property damage and injuries, but miraculously, no fatalities. The police were stumped, chasing leads that went nowhere. That's when they turned to Dr. James A. Brussel, a psychiatrist who would become one of the pioneers of modern criminal profiling. Brussel meticulously studied the crime scenes, the bomber's methods, and the taunting letters sent to newspapers and police. From these clues, he crafted a detailed psychological profile. He predicted the bomber was a middle-aged man, likely in his 50s, unmarried, and living alone, possibly with a female relative like a sister or mother. Brussel noted the bomber's meticulous nature, suggesting he was a skilled craftsman, perhaps a machinist, with a deep grudge against the Consolidated Edison Company, which had been targeted in several bombings. The profile went further. The bomber was likely of Eastern European descent, possibly Slavic, and a Catholic, based on cultural references in the letters. And here's the kicker. Brussel even predicted the bomber would be wearing a double-breasted suit, buttoned up, when arrested. How did this profile match the perpetrator? In 1957, police arrested George Metesky, a 54-year-old former employee of Consolidated Edison. Metesky, a Polish-American Catholic, lived alone with his 2 sisters in Waterbury, Connecticut. He had been injured on the job at Con Ed years earlier and felt the company had wronged him, fueling his bombing campaign. His meticulous bomb-making skills came from his background as a mechanic. And when police knocked on his door, you guessed it, he answered wearing a double-breasted suit, buttoned up, just as Brussel had predicted. This case was a landmark, proving that profiling could turn vague clues into a roadmap to a suspect. Case 2. The Trailside Killer. Now, let's head to the rugged state parks near San Francisco in the late 1970s and early 1980s, where a predator known as the Trailside Killer stalked hikers in the wilderness. This elusive murderer left a trail of fear, claiming at least 7 lives in brutal attacks. Enter John Douglas, one of the FBI's most legendary profilers, whose groundbreaking work inspired characters like Jack Crawford in The Silence of the Lambs and Holden Ford in Mindhunter. Douglas was called in to help local police crack this chilling case, and his profile would prove to be a game-changer. Douglas dove into the case, analyzing crime scenes, victimology, and the killer's methods. He crafted a profile that painted a vivid picture. The Trailside Killer was likely a local man, intimately familiar with the park trails, allowing him to strike swiftly and vanish without a trace. He was probably in his 30s or 40s, shy, reclusive, and socially awkward, especially around women. Douglas noted the killer's blitz attacks, sudden violent assaults that suggested a need to dominate his victims quickly. Most strikingly, Douglas predicted the killer had a speech impediment, likely a stutter. Why? The profiler reasoned that the killer's aggressive tactics compensated for deep-seated insecurity, possibly from a condition like a stutter that caused him shame or social rejection. A physical handicap, Douglas argued, would have limited his ability to overpower victims, and a visible disfigurement would have made him more memorable to witnesses. In 1981, police arrested David Carpenter, and Douglas's profile hit remarkably close to the mark. Carpenter, a 51-year-old local, knew the Bay Area parks like the back of his hand, having grown up and worked in the region. He was socially awkward, with a history of troubled interactions with women, and, most notably, he had a pronounced stutter, just as Douglas had predicted. While the profile was slightly off on Carpenter's age, it nailed his psychological makeup and behavioral traits. Carpenter's blitz attacks, targeting victims of opportunity on secluded trails, reflected the control and dominance Douglas had described. This case was so impactful that it inspired the first episode of Criminal Minds, where a profiler based on Douglas Jason Gideon uses a similar stutter prediction to catch a killer called the Footpath Killer. The Trailside Killer case showcased John Douglas's genius for blending psychology with detective work, turning subtle clues into a roadmap to a predator's identity. It's a testament to how profiling can shine a light on even the most shadowy criminals, helping bring justice to victims and closure to communities. Case 3. The Murder of Kristen Costas. Let's travel back to 1984 to the affluent suburb of Orinda, California, where a shocking crime rocked the tight-knit community of Miramonte High School. On June 23rd, 15-year-old Kristen Costas, a popular cheerleader and varsity swimmer, was brutally stabbed to death by. For 6 months, the case stumped investigators, until an FBI psychological profile helped point them to the killer hiding in plain sight. This is the story of how teenage jealousy and a chillingly accurate profile brought a murderer to justice. Kristen Costas was the quintessential all-American teen, charismatic, athletic, and a star in Miramonte's social scene. As a cheerleader, swimmer, and member of the Bobo Lynx, a prestigious volunteer group, she seemed to have it all: popularity, wealth, and confidence. But for Bernadette Prati, a fellow student, Kirsten's success was a constant reminder of her own insecurities. When the FBI was called in to assist, their behavioral science unit crafted a profile that cut through the mystery. They predicted the killer was likely a teenage girl from a middle-class background, driven by intense jealousy and a need to prove herself in a competitive, affluent community. The profile suggested the perpetrator believed the killing was justified, showing little remorse, and would remain calm under questioning, possibly masking their guilt with a detached demeanor. The motive? A deep-seated resentment, likely tied to social rivalries at school. The profile proved eerily accurate when 16-year-old Bernadette Prati confessed in December 1984. Prati, a middle-class student of Italian descent raised in a devout Catholic family, had been consumed by envy. She had tried out for the cheerleading squad and yearbook committee, both of which Kristen secured, but was rejected, fueling her feelings of inadequacy. On the night of the murder, Prati lured Kristen to a fake Bobo Lynx dinner, using her family's gold Pinto to pick her up. When Kristen realized there was no dinner and grew upset, a confrontation ensued. Prati later admitted she stabbed Kristen 5 times with a kitchen knife, claiming she feared Kristen would tell others she was weird. During initial questioning, Prati remained calm, even passing a lie detector test, just as the FBI profile predicted. But as investigators closed in, guided by the profile's focus on a jealous peer, Prati broke down, writing a confession letter to her parents before turning herself in. In March 1985, Pratti was convicted of second-degree murder as a juvenile, sentenced to a maximum of 9 years. She served 7 years at the California Youth Authority, earning parole in 1992 at age 23, despite opposition from Kirsten's family, who had moved to Hawaii to escape the tragedy. Pratti's lack of outward remorse during her confession aligned with the FBI's profile, as she focused on her own social struggles, saying, "The things that got me mad was it hurt and I couldn't change, like looks or money or popularity." After her release, Pratti changed her name, possibly to Jeanette Tomanka, and faded from public view, reportedly building a new life with a career and family. This case, immortalized in the 1994 TV movie Death of a Cheerleader, highlights how the FBI's profiling nailed Pratti's motivations and demeanor, turning a baffling crime into a cautionary tale about the destructive power of envy in the pressure cooker world of high school. These cases show the power of criminal profiling when it's done right. By analyzing behavior, motives, and crime scene evidence, profilers can create a psychological blueprint that guides investigators to the truth. But profiling isn't a crystal ball, it's a tool, one that works best when combined with solid detective work and, sometimes, a bit of luck. What do you think? Could you spot the clues that profilers use? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more true crime stories that unravel the mysteries of the criminal mind.